Greg, before we went to commercial break, we were discussing, I guess, the similarities and differences with the United States airline response to COVID mandates, vaccine mandates, versus the Canadian response. So I appreciate there's a difference in culture, and clearly we have coast to coast mandate, not even just for the employees, but also for the passengers. You're not flying anywhere if you're not doubly vaxxed and can show proof of that. But there seems to be something more entrenching. I think some Canadians may be comfortable with a vaccine mandate. Some might in this sort of crisis situation. But the federal government is now seeking to enshrine this kind of thing within the labor code. Could you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I guess the concern with it really, and as I said, there's interim orders out, and that's what's governing. I'll just speak to aviation for now. That's what's governing our requirement to be vaccinated along with the passengers. And these are updated every 14 days. And there's minor nuances and changes that govern it. But as you pointed out when we started here, if you enshrine it in the Canada Labour Code, you're looking at almost 1 million employees and 18,500 employers. So there was an announcement that went out early in December. It really didn't take hold firmly, from what I could tell, within the broader media. But what's happening and how this typically plays out is an advisory goes out. It's in what's called a forward regulatory plan. You can look it up and see it there. And most of the advisories that get placed in there have been there for sometimes they're placed in there a couple years prior. The most recent one that I can find other than this one, which is called Developing COVID-19 Vaccination Regulations under the Canadian Labour Code, it was put in there December the 10th. The one prior to that was back in August, and most of them were from 2020. So there's two main pieces, I think, that everyone should be concerned about. The government has said that they consulted with all stakeholders in December of 2021. Remember that I said it was first advised the 10th of December.
Right.
We all packed it in for Christmas around, let's be generous and say the 24th. You've got 10 working days in there to consult the better part of 18,500 employers, and at least the unions and other representatives of the employees themselves. This is mind-boggling that would be possible. Further, it's typically released by something called the Canada Gazette 1, and this is your right. It's your democratic right as a citizen of this country to comment on these things, and so it's typically put out via what's called CG1. Then the public gets a chance to interact with their government in a democracy. They go back and after consulting with the stakeholders, and then they move to enactment via CG2. Now, they have said outright in this listing, the 10th of December, that they will likely go straight to CG2 and enactment. So,
Wow.
I don't feel it's possible for the stakeholders across this nation to have been properly consulted. And secondly, they're bypassing CG1. Now, they may be doing that because there was this release that came out in a rather obscure portion of on a government website, the Employment and Social Development Canada on the 7th of December. But it's been fairly. It hasn't gotten broad play, and the fact that this is going to be locked in, and just one more point, if I can make it.
Sure.
We're talking all federally regulated employees. So we're talking banking, telecom, things like grain elevators, which wasn't something I would have thought of. Uranium mining. There's all sorts of obscure pieces, and more importantly, any business that is vital and essential to those businesses. So some of these right now have voluntarily put mandates in, but they're also allowing testing and such. If we put this in the labor code, it's there firmly and permanently, and that's why everyone should be concerned about this.
So, again, we're going to have a labor lawyer join us later in the program to kind of unpack some of the intricacies of this new measure. But once it's there to stay. Am I correct?
That's my understanding. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm grateful you've got somebody on that can speak beyond my expertise, which is more limited to aviation for sure. But I'm concerned, and I think every federally regulated employee should be, because this is outside. It's a jurisdictional issue, I would say, and it's also a charter issue. And the charter portion we've talked about for the better part of 2 years now, but I think it's also a jurisdictional issue in terms of whether this is what they call ultra vires outside
Right.
the scope of what's permitted.